Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Here with myself, my co-host, Nick Turchin. Before we get into today, what is going to be a detailed, long show, hopefully we'll try to condense it a little bit. We've got a lot to talk about with what we saw on the All-22 from the Giants versus Saints. We've got a lot to talk about with our preview of the Panthers and what it's, I don't want to call a must-win game, but it's damn close to it for the New York Giants in the 2018 football season. But first, I do want to get rid of some of the housekeeping. I know I've said it before, but if you guys do enjoy the show and you do enjoy this analysis, in addition to following us on Twitter, and I know we'll throw out our handles at the end of the show, more importantly, guys, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button on iTunes for the Big Blue Banter podcast. Download each episode. Give us a review if you want to, but most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends to do the same if they do listen to the show. That makes a big difference for us, and it will get our podcast in front of more ears and bring it to bigger and better things. But on that note, I do want to throw it over to Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
Feeling good. Tough loss. Not a great game. I think everyone wanted better. A lot of offensive issues. Psyched to get into it all and kind of ready for some improvement this week.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I think we should start this off with pretty much, like I said, how we started off every single podcast, and that's just an homage. I guess I'm trying to look for the right word here. I guess it just kind of plays into what the fans want right now, or at least what it seems like the fans are talking about a lot on Giants Twitter. You know, there's a lot of narratives that get spun, in my opinion, a little bit out of control. Some back, some not back, but in general, everybody wants to talk about Eli Manning after every single Giants game at this point in his career. Until the Giants offense starts scoring points, I don't blame them. I understand it. He's the quarterback, so we're gonna do that today. We're gonna start with Eli Manning for you, Nick, because I think that you did a lot of work on him, and so did I. So we both got a lot to say here. But I'm gonna throw it to you first. You're definitely a little more. I'll say a little more. Have more of a critique on him than I did for this game, and trust me, I didn't think he played a good game. So I'll get into that. But Nick, let's start with you here.
Yeah, I think overall you had a lot of examples this week, and I detailed this in a piece for Cover One. I was up till like 4 a.m. on Monday night with 1,600 words. It was way too much. Didn't really want to go that deep into it. But I picked a few plays and picked a few other plays and put on Twitter. Overall, I think it goes back to from my interpretation of it is it goes back to his processing issues and what he's seeing and what he's willing to throw. And when I say willing to throw, it meaning he's either speeding through his reads too quickly or not basically attacking the defense with how the plays are designed at the defense's weaknesses, which is basically how most of Pat Shurmur's drop back passing offense is set up. And I wrote in my piece, I used Jocko Willink and his video "Good" that he has on YouTube, where basically Jocko's interpretation is anything that really happens to you, you can spin in a certain way. And it wasn't really a move to pump up any fans or anything or try to get people to not be so depressed about the offense. The bigger thing was just whatever the defense gives to Manning, he's going to have an answer. For the most part, it's like almost all variables are accounted for on both sides of the read in their drop back passing, and just didn't see that executed. And I really think that coming down the stretch, it wasn't just to a few plays. It was across the course of the game. It was to cover 2. It was to cover 3. It was different looks where he has the tools, that he has the answers that he needs. The protection was there, and the follow-up there just simply wasn't. And you're looking at about 6 to 8 plays, at least, I would say, that are clear. And again, is this just a plain purely Manning? I think you can get into a little bit of play calling and what he's comfortable with, because clearly, and this is where I want to hear Dan's side of it, I don't think he's comfortable in a lot of these things. I don't think that has to do with his lack of manhood or his lack of competitive toughness. I think this guy wants to be here, and I think he really wants to win. I'm not seeing it translate into his processing.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and defend him. I also thought he had a bad game, and I had similar issues to you. There were a lot of chances I think he should have taken cover 2. What I'm wondering about, though, and this is something that me and you really won't have a good grasp on, and it's going to be tough for us to know, is how much of this is offensive philosophy and how much of this is Eli Manning. I don't know if both him and Shurmur have, decided between them, or, everyone involved in this situation has decided between them that they want to be a high completion percentage offense that doesn't make as many mistakes as they've made in the past and take as many shots. And I'll say this, while I do agree with everything you said, and I think there were a lot more examples than there were even in the Dallas game. Now, there were more open receivers, I thought, running free in the Dallas game. I mean, there was only, to me, more this was Manning just not taking shots against the zone defense than it was in the Dallas. I thought he was just missing a lot of open receivers by not getting to that read. So on that note, I have more of an issue in that one for that. But I will say this: I don't know if that's playing into this, the philosophy there to not turn the ball over. And I do think that, while there were a lot of instances, we got to keep in mind that, 3 of 9 of these drives were stopped by a Gallman fumble and then 2 penalties that got them into 1st and 20. And I've said this every week, and I'll say it again. This is not an offense that can afford to go into 1st and 20 because this offense on 3rd and long, and that, while they did complete one of these, I believe, this game, they've been pretty bad on it before this. It's just not it's not set up really with a quarterback like Eli who doesn't move as well in out of the pocket and inside the pocket on third and longs, and an offensive line that, quite frankly, is not really designed to block on these 3rd and long situations. You need a really, really good offensive line for that. So that was 3 of the 9 drives. They scored on 3 of the other drives, and then there were 3 wasted drives. So, there are issues I have for sure. I'm calling it a bad game for sure. I think it was. Would you say this was his worst game or Dallas, Nick?
Very close. I think this would be his worst, only because, put it this way, let me phrase it this way. When I put the tape on, I expected the secondary to be very deceptive, to have multiple different X's and O's that are constantly getting at Manning and trying to bait him. But the bottom line is, you pull up these coverages, they're very vanilla and they're run repeatedly. So Shermer adjusted in the second half, and really earlier than that, and you're not seeing the trigger being pulled. So that, to me, is the biggest red flag, really, more so than in the Dallas game, where I think that Dallas did a lot of things that surprised him. I think the man coverage in the Dallas game surprised him. I think the blitzing surprised him. I don't think they're used to that from the front. And they're not used to, by the way, I think the Dallas secondary being very tight on the Giants, too, in terms of separation. So I think those 3 elements differ between the 2 games.
Sure. And then if you look at it like that, from just like a broad overview, I'll certainly get worried. I don't want to sound like I'm defending him, because I'm definitely not. I mean, now we're talking about 2 of 4 games where we had some issues with Eli Manning, the quarterback, on the New York Giants. It's like we said at the top, there's a very important position. So 2 of the 4 games we have some issues, and overall, I think he struggled throughout the past, 2.5 seasons with zone coverage, with cover 2 coverage. Not the first time we're talking about him, not being able to beat these. But, I want to throw it a little bit, at least to the play calling, because after the game, I just want to see where we stand on this. Because after the game, Pat Shermer, Giants head coach, said, I should have ran Saquon Barkley more. I mean, we're talking about a game that was 12-7 at half. The Giants were only down 5 points because the red zone defense, which we'll get to, was unbelievable. They're down 5 points at halftime. They were never down more than 2 scores. There was a back-breaking drive, which we'll get to later, where there was an offensive pass interference picked up on the Saints on 3rd and 9 that would have changed the game. But this was a close game. My point is, this was a close game. And Shermer said after, I wish I ran Barkley more. Barkley had 10 rushing attempts on the game. So my question to you is this. When these defenses are playing soft zone, Barkley said the best way for the Giants to beat this is just by running the football at them. My question to you is, in the first drive, I saw an excellent mix of 11 personnel, of 21 personnel with Penny on the field, and of 12 personnel with both Simonson and Ellis on the field, the 2 tight ends. After that, I didn't see that mix anymore. I didn't see that mix for the rest of the game. I saw almost exclusively 11 personnel. So, my question is this, Nick. Is part of the blame belong to, one, Pat Shermer for not running the football more? And I know it's blasphemy in the football community. You're not allowed to run the football. You're not allowed to come out in heavy personnel. It's stupid to run the football. But I'm not so sure when teams are playing such a soft zone if that's the case. So my one question for you is that. Did they not run the football much against a soft zone? And then my second question to you is it some of the blame on Shermer for getting away from the 12 and 21 personnel and mixing up the personnel like he did on that first drive? He really did it. I'm looking through my notes. He mixed his personnel a lot in that first drive. Is the blame on him for that? I mean, where do we stand on that right now, Nick?
They're very good observations on the first drive, just because it's something I haven't talked about on Twitter yet. West Coast offenses, and people are going to kill me for that, to coaches that come from West Coast traditions, love to script their first 10 to 15 plays. Some coaches get as high as like 20. So what Dan's actually highlighting here hits on the point that Shermer's opening scripts seem to be very deliberate, very specific, and for the most part, in the last couple of games, pretty successful. After that, you're seeing the script get away from the personnel package mixing for whatever reason. If now some of this can be game situations where if the team gets down, obviously that's going to make their personnel, that's going to change the way they're looking. So part of it is that, but he can't escape another aspect here, which is, this was a close game, just as Dan says, and he goes away from it. So what are the issues with running only one personnel package? In my opinion, it's okay if you vary a lot of other variables very highly to basically give different looks for the defense. So Dan brings up the running game, which I think is very interesting because I don't think they maybe didn't run the ball as much as they wanted to for whatever reason. But when they did, I saw them running it out of 11 personnel a lot, where I think they saw better success there. Now, when I say better success, I don't think it translated necessarily into all but a few runs. But I think that's the direction they want to go into versus running out of heavier 12 personnel sets or even 22. They ran that once actually to start the second quarter. I don't see that as successful as running out of 11 personnel. And why? Because Barkley does well in space. The whole goal for Barkley, I think, is not number of rushing attempts that he gets. I don't think if he gets to 20 rushing attempts, they win this game, the next game. I think it's getting him in space via the run of the pass and however that works the best. And it's getting better in inside zone, and it's best at inside zone out of 11 personnel. Now, to get back to what how does the play calling overall Knicks look in terms of run and pass? I think he wanted to run the ball more, but I would be okay if he got Barkley the ball. If he got Barkley 7-8 touches or 7-8 targets in the passing game. To me, that's virtually the same, and that's kind of the way the Saints have handled Kamara, and that's a little bit of the way that Shermer handled Dalvin Cook when he was healthy last year.
I understand where you're coming from right there, Nick, because I also agree that in general, it is better to run out of 11 personnel for a multitude of reasons that you just went over. But I did see a successful run out of the jumbo package at one point, and they're actually using now Spencer Pulley, not Eric Flowers, on the jumbo package. What does that say about Eric Flowers getting in on jumbo package? Think about that. And this guy is, 6'5", 330, physical specimen, should be excellent in the run game. Was excellent in the run game during his rookie season. That just goes to show me this guy, doesn't belong on any NFL roster. He just doesn't have the mindset for it. But anyway, they had some success there. They only did it once. It was a 5-yard gain. But my point is, I get it. You want to run 11 personnel, but Barkley did get 8 targets in the pass game. A lot of it came when they finally went into hurry-up mode. And
right.
It was just, dumps underneath, which I don't hate personally. All of them worked. I don't hate really any of them. I think Eli needs to get the ball quicker on some of them personally. But my point is, I also think that he should be getting more. So he finishes the game with, I guess, 18 touches, if you want to call them, 8 targets, 10 carries, 6 receptions of the 8, so 16 total actual touches. I think that number should be in the 25 to 30 range every game. I think this offense should be very similar to how the Steelers have kind of maneuvered their offense around Brown and Bell. And you don't have to stick with that. I know Pat Shermer said that after the Houston game, the best games are the ones we win when we get the ball to 9 different players. You don't have to stick with that, but you have to at least commit the defense to believing that that's where the game's going to go through, in my opinion at least, because that's just going to change how they're going to play you. And my question for you is this, Nick. Is it as easy as Barkley kind of makes it out to be against soft zone defenses to run the football, or do you believe that really there has to be a more consistency up front from the blocking?
And so thanks for coming back to that, because I knew that was the back half of the question when you posed it. I knew there was more to it where I wanted to go. I think Barkley is an absolute leader. I think everything about him how he handles himself in the media is like as good as you can get. And I think this is a great example. I don't think it's that simple. But I love him being willing, as a guy who was in his 4th game, to basically say, like, no, I want this on me, and I'll take whatever it is on me. Be like, let's go. I think that's 100% what you want. When you have a cover 2 zone, what you have is whether it's cover 2 or Tampa 2, let's just call it cover 2 for simplicity's sake here. You have 5 zone defenders in the second tier, basically stretched across the field. So yes, there's going to be room on some level initially, but second tier, you're going to have 5 guys looking at the quarterback or you as you go through your run. So how basically, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made a living off of this defense was having quick twitch defensive backs that were willing to step up in the run game and aggressive on their run fits. It's not necessarily like all they had to do was run the ball and that was going to be it. I think you have to attack that cover two defense and understand that where its weaknesses are and where its strengths are. Specifically for the running game, I think it's one where you have to use a little bit more misdirection and a good mix of inside and outside running to really attack it. And I'm not going to say it's as simplistic as just running outside zone pin pull concepts, which the Giants have not run at all. And when I say pin pull, meaning where the split zone or the tight end, it blocks down on the edge defender, and the tackle on that side pulls out into the alley. You haven't seen that at all. And you haven't seen Barkley successfully get the perimeter consistently. And I think that mixed with inside zone is the best way to kind of get into any coverage defense behind their front four.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, that's really sums it up there as far as, it's not as easy as Barkley makes it seem. But let's transition a little bit because we did harp on that a lot. I wanted to get into a little bit of the empty sets the Giants have been using for the first time, really. I mean, they used a little bit under McAdoo, but under Shermer, they've been using it a lot. It had a lot of success for them the first few weeks of the season. Didn't have as much success against the Saints. What do you think was the issue there? What happened then? What happened now?
I think last game you had just very good execution across the board. I'm looking at a few of the empty set scenarios. One of the problems with empty, a lot of teams check automatically to blitzes to a 5-man rush.
And you saw that in this game.
Right, and to ensure a 5-on-5, pass blocker on pass rusher. Again, because if you don't have anyone else in the backfield, and if the tight end's at least in a wing position, it's really going to be 5-on-5 no matter what. So what that means is that you're basically relying on the quick game to win. And I'm looking at one example here, and you see it was an example where John Greco got smoked by Demario Davis on the pass rush, and his play strength just was not where it needed to be, and it quickly led to a breakdown. So I think it was a little specific to this game and a little specific to the interior pressure that they were able to get. That were a couple guys where Greco's called out and he hasn't been a traditional issue on the line in terms of pass pro. So that was kind of like a new thing, and just overall lack of execution comparatively to other plays. The other one I'm remembering too that was an empty set was in the red zone, I believe, where Manning throws this similar fade to Barkley that was so successful in week 3 out of empty, where Barkley's the X or Z wide receiver, the wide receiver on the field, and Manning there instead of versus man, I'm believing that was cover 4. That was quarters coverage, and it was just not a great read and a tough play to throw an end zone fade to the end. It should really be a back shoulder throw, and a tough one to make it that against the quarters coverage and leverage on that side of the field. So just lack of execution to lack of kind of getting the right play at the right time in terms of the differences between those 2 weeks.
Yeah. And that's something, they'll have to look at as well moving forward. But I do want to transition a little bit because we're harping on this a lot. Just a quick note. Again, I said it last week. I'll say it again. If the Giants are going to keep going to keep having penalties on these design screen passes, which they've had now every week, I think, at least one penalty, they have to they have to stop running them until they can figure out how to block these without getting called for penalties because it's killing them. I mean, there were 2 of the 9 drives. They only had 9 possessions this game. That's not a lot. 3 of them they scored. Like I said, 2 of these were ruined once they got into 1st and 20. They just can't keep doing this to themselves. They have to. They have to figure that out, or they can't run those plays, in my opinion. And one thing I wanted to talk about, Nick, before I dove into a couple more things actually before we want to get into the defense. I wanted to talk about a drive that I thought really, to me, that this game was best at least for me, it was best encapsulated by just 2 drives that really shifted the momentum, 2 really bad drives for the Giants, one on offense, one on defense. The first one for me is on offense because we're going to talk about the defense later. It was right after the Saints came down and scored to make the game 7-6. So it was their second drive where they scored a field goal. So now we're talking about 7-18. Giants get the ball back in the second quarter with a chance to do things. They have to do something. 7-6. Such a big momentum play. If they have a 4 or 5 minute drive here, even if it ends in a field goal, you're at 10-6. Really gives a chance to get to the halftime up 10-6. So 1st and 10, this is the worst play of the game, in my opinion, for Eli Manning. It's the play action pass to Odell Beckham Jr. This is one of the worst throws I've seen from Manning in the last 3 years, 5 years. However, one of the worst throws I've ever seen from Manning. And my issue here is that, what's going on in this throw, because he has such a balanced base that he's making the throw from. such a clean pocket. Is the timing just off with Beckham? Because I've seen this really throughout the first 4 weeks. I've seen a couple things, and I haven't wanted to bring this up because it's not there yet for me to make this call, but I haven't totally seen that classic second Odell Beckham Jr. gear so far from him when he's caught passes in the flat, at least underneath. There's been a couple plays over the past few weeks where I think he houses them. He just finds a way, even though it doesn't look like he has the angle with the safety. And I know we'll say it. Nick, you might say it after I say this. There's no angle. Look at it. The safety's there. But old Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't need an angle. He was making plays, beating safeties to the edge without the angle. So we can talk about that more another time. But if it keeps showing up, because there's still not enough evidence of that. But my point is here, their chemistry is clearly off. And this throw was way over his head, and it was just not timed right at all. And then you get into 2nd and 10, and I think this play is one of the worst plays of the game as well for the Giants because Eli Manning has to check out here. He has to check out of a run to a pass. Now, like we talked about before, I said they should run the football more, but you got to be smart with it. It's 2nd and 10. There's 6 blockers in the box versus at least 7 defenders in the box, with an 8th kind of playing near the line of scrimmage at the slot receiver. This is just not a situation where you should run the football, and it was completely stopped for a gain of just 2. So now they're in 3rd and 8 again, and they have the Saints rush 4, and the Giants have 6 in protection. This was happening far too often to me against the Saints. In this game against the Saints, where they were just rushing 4 guys and getting there. And Eli goes to Shepard here, Russell Shepard, on the go route down the left sideline, because that's literally all the Saints give them, in my opinion. I don't think there was any chance get this ball out to Odell Beckham or Sterling Shepard. They were running 2 deeper routes against 4 defensive backs, Saints defensive backs in coverage. The Saints were literally just rushing 4 and still playing just one-on-one coverage on the boundary with Marshawn Lattimore against Russell Shepard, and he just doesn't win this route. This ball is actually not a bad ball. If he wins this route and gets over the top of this route, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, it's a catch. And do you agree with that? If he wins this one's on the receiver?
I would say on that one, he doesn't get separation for any part of that
at all.
I don't think the ball should be thrown. To be fair,
when you look at this route, you tell me. I looked at this multiple times because I saw people complaining about this route for Eli Manning. I don't know where else this ball is going to be. There's 4 Saints defenders against Shepard and Beckham. So where's this ball going to be?
See, and that's the thing, and you touch on what I brought up in my piece on Cody Latimer, and this is where you miss Latimer massively. So this is a 3-by-1 set that Dan's talking about. So 3 receivers on the right side, 1 on the left. And Manning has a post-wheel combination on the right side of the field. And they're basically playing a quarters coverage. Well, they're playing a quarters coverage, except the deep middle safety that's playing on the offense's left side basically completely abandons Shepard.
Yeah.
And you go. So what ends up happening is if you have a 3-by-1 where your one lone X wide receiver can win in an isolation route, then that changes the game because it's not that they're going to basically automatically double team him effectively with safety over the top help, but they're not going to totally disregard him. And that's what was happening here, because when you look at this tape, like what if the guy runs a slant and he's beaten? There's no one there. There's no one on that side of the field. And that's a complete disregard because they know they have their best corner against a wide receiver 4. Yeah. And so I go into, a couple things, like is post wheel is a cover 3 beater. Okay. They ran cover 4. So Manning's reading the right side of the field here. He just they don't have the personnel for this exact play. And I don't think he should have thrown this ball because he didn't have separation. And not only that, he almost pushes off. The only way Shepard gets separation is he kind of pushes off a ladder.
Where do you think the ball should go then? Like, to me, we don't want to harp too much on this play. Where's the ball going to go otherwise?
I can't recall where the rush capability, or the rush part of this check down should be, but this one is one that should be checked down, and it should go to the sideline and go, okay, like now we know that Shepard can't get separation against their best corner. We should throw someone else in isolation that has a better chance of doing that, or throw the combination route on the other side that can better get a third option, I should say, to Manning for however he's making his read. So with all this, when Manning chooses a side of the field to throw to, now I'm remembering it too. It's Barkley who was running the check down to the left. He runs the swing route and he doesn't quit on it, but he kind of stands there looking at him. That's where the ball should have went. And whether or not Manning has to buy time and then check it down, It's I'm not saying it's on him, but I'm saying like effectively either he throws the fade that is a very low percentage throw, or he makes that the check down to Barkley. It's kind of a schematic dead end.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it wasn't a great example, and it was not their best foot there for sure.
And then so they missed that drive, and then the very next drive is when they go empty on 2nd and 5, and Eli just has to get this ball out to Odell Beckham Jr. on the quick hit over the middle. He's out of the slot. He's running a drag over the middle. Eli just doesn't get it out in time. He gets a little confused by this blitz. The Saints blitz 6 guys. It's a sack. It's 2nd and 5 now, 3rd and 14. And, that's when, Eli misses the chance that you've broken down on Twitter, the 2 deep outs against the cover 2 with Russell Shepard and Odell Beckham Jr. But these are back-to-back drives, in my opinion, that just really killed the momentum of this game. And then you look at it later in the game when they're really behind, they go into the hurry-up offense, and they're moving the football again. My question for you is this, Nick. Does this offense, over his career, Manning's been better in the hurry-up offense. Is this something that, Pat Shurmur should really look to use more? And at different times of the game, especially when the Giants are at home, they can control the crowd noise. Different times of the game, not just, to mix things up, mixing up the tempo, not just in the 4th quarter when they need to go to it. Is that something you see, or is that you feel like the Saints kind of kept up their defense maybe, and that's kind of the reason it worked well in the 4th quarter?
The Saints definitely didn't change their defense, and you bring up a good point. The other reason why tempo works for quarterbacks is if you have a quarterback that's not processing, I keep on using that word, that's not thinking through or seeing the defense correctly or miss it or inaccurate, which Manning was all of that in this game. What tempo does is it generally gets them not thinking about that. It gets them reading and reacting as a pure athlete in a very quick kind of way. And so that's oftentimes when you see in a game when a quarterback's throwing the ball like crap, and then the second then the end of the half comes and he goes to a 2-minute drive, and all of a sudden he looks amazing, and then he can take that momentum into the 3rd quarter. That's a benefit of tempo. And so yeah, I definitely say that it could be used correctly, or when it's applicable in a game like this for sure. And it puts the defense on kind of notice. It hurts them with substitutions, and like I said, it does all those things for the quarterback. So yeah, is that why Manning all of a sudden was a little bit better in those drives in the 4th quarter? For sure. We had that question in the Q&A too that's going to touch on that as well. It's something that should be used. The downside is if you're not comfortable in your offense, and if you want a quote unquote, and this is a bad word to use, but a ball controlling offense, if you're a little worried about putting the pressure on your defense, I think that's why you don't use it selectively. But other than that, yeah, it's something that clearly he responds to historically well, and is built. By the way, they did this in Minnesota a fair amount with Case Keenum. This isn't foreign. This isn't like it's going against the foundational principle of Pat Shurmur's offense for sure.
And that's just another thing that bothers me a little bit so far. I've definitely been a little underwhelmed by Shurmur. Just his general, I guess it's hard to explain, maybe feel for the game. I haven't really been a huge fan of, like we talked about, going away from the personnel earlier that I didn't think he should have done, and just kind of not feeling out when to use tempo like he did in Minnesota. But hopefully that'll change moving forward. But we've harped far too long on the offense. We didn't even get a chance to talk on the offensive line. I'm just going to get a couple quick points there. You can give very quick ones too if you want. I thought John Greco's the one who flashed the most to me on tape in a bad way. I thought he regressed big time. I thought he missed a lot of play, both in the run and pass game. I didn't like what I saw. And that was really the only player who really stood out, except for Hernandez, who I thought played an excellent game, easily the best game I saw from him. And then on the last point I want to make is I did think Wheeler showed a little bit of improvement for sure. And I think he's going to get a little bit better every week almost. So if you want to throw some quick notes before we go to the defense.
No, I think the Wheeler point is right on. I think Wheeler's faced a different challenge in Cam Jordan and a different type of rush. He wasn't blown off the ball in terms of, comparatively to J.J. Watt's crazy get off. So he had a little bit of a better matchup there. And yeah, he hung up well in the run game. He's a competitor. He doesn't quit. He's not going to, it's one of those things, you're going to get a fight on that side of it, whether it's good or bad. You're going to see some ugly plays, but overall, I think I like where that's going in terms of him shaping to be a capable starter for the existing personnel that they have now. And I don't want to say this like I'm down on him, but they need to upgrade it. But yeah, I think you are at this point getting better results than you were with Flowers for sure.
And then one last final thing, because I know a couple people asked me about this on Twitter. I'm just going to make a quick point. You can correct it if you need to, but I think we should move on. The reason the Giants, some people ask, why weren't the Giants rolling Manning out like they did against the Texans as much to that, to his right, I guess, to his strong side. And, what Nick pointed out to me, and then I saw it myself when I was looking at tape, is just the different style of play of J.J. Watt at left defensive end and then of Cam Jordan of the Saints. One guy's crashing down, Watt, and the other guy is not. So it makes it a lot more difficult for Manning, who doesn't exactly have the most athleticism. We saw this on the second 15 over route, deep over route I guess that wasn't a deep over route, whatever that route was, where it's a play that they used against the Texans and it worked, but Cam Jordan doesn't bite, and the Giants have to check down to Odell Beckham Jr. on the play for like a 4-yard gain on 2nd and 15 off the play action. So, just the difference, it just wasn't, in the cards as much with how the Texans were playing. I don't have as much of an issue with Shermer on that as I did before. I noticed that. Nick, did you have anything else you wanted to add there?
Yeah, just real quick. What Dan's saying is on the play action side, when he rolls to his right and they're running a 3-level stretch, so there's 3 receivers coming to the quarterback's right. When they run that bootleg, a lot of people look at that and they see when the quarterback doesn't get touched or it looks like he throws it away quickly, people kind of think like, hey, why doesn't he hold on to the ball longer? Why doesn't he do X, Y, and Z? If the quarterback doesn't have the athleticism, it's not about worried about getting hit. He needs to find a throwing lane. And when you're going against a guy who's 6'4" or whatever, I guess Jordan's a little smaller, but a larger size individual, it's very hard to get that throwing lane when he has his hands up. So if Manning doesn't secure that, he knows that his athleticism can't make it any better effectively. So it's not a give up. It's just a smart play because he understands if he pushes that, it's going to be a deflection and potential disaster. So that's why the Giants went away from that, because Jordan, like Dan said, wasn't crashing, so the angle wasn't really there. And again, it's not because of Manning not wanting to get hit. It's there's literally no throwing lane.
Yep. And we'll transition now to the defense. We've spent far too long on the offense, but I want to start with at least what stood out to me most about the defense. And I won't say that actually stood out to me most of it. Betcher stood out to me most about defense, and we'll get there, but because I love this. I thought this was his best game so far. But I want to start with the player who stood out most to me, and that's Landon Collins, who, I'll throw it to you first and then I'll get into it. But I thought this was easily his best game of the season, and I thought this was vintage Landon Collins. What did you see, Nick?
Yeah, when they had situational defense or situational sudden change defense, where there was basically either a turnover or a spot where they had to make a stand in the red zone. Guys like Landon Collins helped make that stand. And I'm trying to find the drive. The one drive, it was the final drive
you're talking about.
Yeah, it was the final.
Actually, at least for me, this is the drive. Actually, this was I believe the 6th drive of the 6th possession for the Saints. Either 6th or 7th. I'm looking at it now. And this is the drive that killed the Giants, in my opinion.
Yep.
I'll break it down real quick, and I'll throw it back to you. It's 12-7 Saints at this point. It's 12-7 with 10:42 remaining in the third quarter. This game is up for grabs. Anyone can have this game. It starts with an 18-yard run by Kamara on 1st and 10 from the 20, which, in my opinion, will never happen once Olivier Vernon gets back into this lineup, because this is a terrible play, in my opinion, from Connor Barwin. He gets washed out by a fullback on this play. And he does not set the edge, and it turns into an 18-yard run. Oh well, next play, it's fine. That's going to happen, in my opinion, with Barwin in that spot. We've talked Barwin before. I'm not as impressed as you are with him. He does have that spin move, but other than that, I'm not a huge fan. But the next play, very next play, again, right after that play, they're at the Giants 38. It's a 15-yard back shoulder to Michael Thomas. This play's never going to get stopped. I don't care who's on him. The coverage was fine. This is just perfect timing, perfect ball placement. It's unstoppable. These two have been doing it for enough time now where this is unstoppable. But now it's 1st and 10. So now they get 15 yards after that. It's 1st and 10 on the Giants side of the field. And Landon Collins has a huge run stop where he just comes out and basically shoots out of a cannon to stop a play for 2 yards, where it looks like he's almost the last line of defense when you watch it from the all-22 angle. And then on the next play, Ray gets lost in coverage against Ben Watson, a bit of a natural pick. Could have forced in 3rd and 8. But it's okay, because now they're down in the red zone, and it's 1st and 10, and this is when Landon Collins takes over. It's 1st and 10. He's in coverage against Watson, Ben Watson, the tight end, and he forces an incompletion instead of a touchdown. On 2nd and 10, he shoots out of the cannon, makes a tackle that saves not only a first down, but probably more. And then it's 3rd and 6, so he stops for a 4-yard gain. It's 3rd and 6. And Collins again makes a pass breakup where he shoots down on Alvin Kamara, running a bit of an arrow route over the middle, and makes an unbelievable play on the football. But, so 4th and 6, the Saints are going to kick a field goal, 15-7. It's still a game. Doesn't give them that much momentum, right? No, wrong, because on the opposite side of the field, B.W. Webb has a face mask on the 3rd and 6. It's just one of several penalties the Giants had on 3rd down on defense after they stopped, and I'll get to that more. I mean, I hated the 3rd and 9 where the Saints, where the referee picks up the flag on 3rd and 9 in a huge moment against the Saints. But I'll get to that a little later. I don't want to go off on a tangent again. But my point is, this drive was so dominant by Landon Collins. He makes 4 unbelievable individual plays. He single-handedly stops them to keep the momentum for the Giants. 15-7 it should be, but obviously the face mask. But, this drive to me just encapsulated a lot of what I saw throughout the game. He was all over the tape. He made multiple, not only first down saving tackles from the run game, but maybe touchdown saving tackles when you look at it. Is there anything else you want to add on Collins, or give me your overall evaluation of what you saw from him?
Yeah, I think it'd have to be right in line there. I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find a better example of one player making such an impact in the red zone. On that Kamara angle route, he doesn't run great angle routes, but still Collins is reading the jump. He's all over it. You're seeing great play speed. And the only thing I will add is that you saw the Giants do something interesting. They brought him down into the box in their nickel personnel, but it's not so simple just in bringing down in the box. What they were able to do was they actually threw Ogletree in a lot of cases on the outside, and they replaced basically Collins. They put Collins on the weak side of the defense in effectively the money backer position. And that was really interesting. That was a wrinkle that basically helped take away Kamara on front side, on weak side runs by having Collins' athleticism that close to the line without really suffering, without really giving up much in the rest of what they were doing, because Collins had the ability to basically get to flats when they were playing zone defense there. Really nice sprinkle there. You're going to see if they're going to follow up with that this week, because in McCaffrey, you're going to get a similar type of running back in that regard in the way they use him.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because best game of the season for sure for him, and they're using him in different ways. So I think there's reason to be optimistic about that moving forward. But I also want to transition and talk a little bit about, some of the miscues. I almost got into it right there. But, I mean, this is a game where this Giants defense to me is super, super close. This game showed it to me to being a really, really good defense in this league. They were just back-breaking plays that happened to them. I mean, the 3rd and 9 offensive pass interference call that was picked up, where the Saints throw it into the flat to Kamara. And I'm trying to actually get up, Nick, if you can do me a favor real quick and just get up exactly where the Giants were on this. Like, what was the situation there? I believe it was the 8th defensive drive, or the 8th drive by the Saints. I'm trying to get the quarter that it was in, because this was still a game at this time. Sorry, this is radio, guys, but I'll break it down real quick.
And Hill had the penalty, right?
This is the penalty that they picked up. This is the offensive pass interference on the Saints. And I'll get to why I was so angry about it in a second, but they picked it up. And then, they have another chance at they get the first down there instead of 3rd and 19. But we'll get to where this is as we find it. But the point is, it's 3rd and 9. This is still a game right now. The Saints throw out into the flat to Kamara, and literally the receiver is engaged with the defender before the pass is caught. Now, I don't have a problem if you don't want to call it, if you want to. And I don't even have a problem if you're going to go as far as throwing the flag on this play and then picking it up. But earlier in the game, this exact same thing happened with Odell Beckham Jr. on a screen pass where Russell Shepard was caught engaging with the defender early. And they throw and keep the flag. It kills the Giants' drive. They have to punt 3 plays later. But they throw and keep the flag. There has to be some consistency here. And there was no I'm not blaming this game on the refs at all. I've made that pretty clear on Twitter. And I pretty much will never blame any game on the refs, as bad as it gets. But this officiating crew is the worst I've seen for a full game this season of any team, not only Giants games. I think they're over the hill. Morelli's over the hill, and I think there was no consistency in this game. And that, to me, was a prime example. The horse collar was another one where Sterling Shepard got tackled in a very similar fashion to the one that George Jenkins made on Alvin Kamara that was called for. But, this is a key play. If you don't pick up this flag on 3rd and 9 and you hold this call, it's 3rd and 19, and the Saints were in 1 3rd and 19 type situation early in the game, and all they could do was check down. It's a really tough situation. And the Giants get the ball back. I believe it was 19-10 at this point when this happened. And the Giants will get the ball back. But, this is just an example of a miscue. And there were multiple other ones. There was also the Dalvin Tomlinson unnoticed trip when the Saints got the ball back up 8 after the Giants scored a 2-point conversion. This should be called for a trip. It's an obvious trip. You should have a back judge watching the line. That's his job. This is a terrible play. Instead, Breeze rolls out, connects for 24 yards. The game is essentially over after that. There was the 3rd and 7 screen to Michael Thomas at a key moment, and And obviously the 3rd and 6 stop we went over with Landon Collins that BW Webb got flagged for. So there were a lot of chances for this defense, and I think they showed a lot of good signs. But to me, the most impressive probably to me was just the red zone defense from the Giants. What did you see there, Nick?
Yeah, I saw what was interesting. And by the way, just to get back to you real quick on the play you're talking about, Camaro's, this was 3rd and 9, 12:41 mark, 4th quarter for our note taking as we're going through this. What was the score is 19-10. Yeah, no, it's exactly as you described. It's
12:41. If the Giants get the football back,
Yeah, no, it's a different game. No, 100%. And there was a bubble screen to the left, and yeah, it was a tough call. But yeah, so to the red zone side, what I saw was a lot of aggression in different ways in coverage. And this is going to touch on one of the things where one of the aspects that I took this week was defending Curtis Riley, which I received a ton of vitriol towards. But what Betcher was doing early in the game is in the far red zone in like the 15-yard line range. He was actually playing versions of cover 3, which is a little aggressive / dumb, because when you're in the red zone and you play cover 3, you open up those vertical seams to easy slants where it's almost impossible to defend for that deep safety to defend. And then what he was doing on the next play, which I thought was really interesting, the next play he would go to man, but he would go to man where the apex defenders defending the slot receivers actually had outside leverage, almost baiting the other teams, almost baiting Drew Brees to throw the slant. Not just a slant, just a deep post for a touchdown from that far red zone area. So for me, when I look at that, I go, this is a coordinator who's very confident in his secondary to basically jump these routes, because I think he was trying to bait him a little bit. The bait didn't come. Again, there's a point that this is like the game in the game where no one really talks about it. But these things that you pick up on tape, it's like, why is he doing this? Like, the hole is basically right there. And then you just saw just overall great effort, like we said, from Collins, but as well, you had great examples from BJ Hill, great examples from Ogletree, guys getting after it, and just overall, not a reliance necessarily on pressure, but in the coverage side, mixing and matching, where I really think Brees, especially for the first three times, was definitely off balance.
Yeah, I think this was James Betcher's best game so far. I saw multiple plays on the All-22 where Betcher legitimately confused Drew Brees. There was an early red zone play where Brees had a wide open Ken Meredith running underneath, and he didn't see it, and the Giants got the sack on the play. I believe it was BJ Hill who got the sack on this play. And he just confused the hell out of Brees on that one. There was other plays where he would put, all the guys on the line, both his 2 inside backers and the edge guys, and he would drop. I saw a couple plays where he would drop Lorenzo Carter on the edge and Kareem Martin, and then double blitz the A gap with both inside linebackers. And this would be 4-man blitz, but it would confuse. But on one of them, it completely confused the Saints offensive line, where the center just didn't account for. I believe the linebacker on the inside was Ogletree on that one, and just didn't account for him, and he got the pressure there. So I thought this was overall by far and away the best game from Betcher, and I'm really seeing a lot of signs from this defense that they could be something really good down the line this year. And even if the Giants, aren't competing as well on offense, that this defense can keep them in games. And a lot of that is James Betcher, and they haven't played a single game yet with Olivier Vernon, who I've said on multiple occasions, I'll say it again, is the best defensive player on this defense when he's healthy. So we'll see what happens there. We'll get to the injuries in a little bit. But I'm going to give you your chance now if you want to go any further on your defense of Curtis Riley.
If you could just get through this. What are you saying here when you say that he's basically a capable starter? And on Twitter, I did on Twitter and multiple other venues, on Reddit and on a couple of the message boards, I broke down his 2 basically big issue plays, where he helped give up the touchdown to Kamara, and then Kamara's first touchdown, and then on basically multiple other examples where you see him making tackles and making plays, and pretty good plays at that. Just to kind of summarize it, I think where people are there's a little bit of a disconnect in expectation. Riley's a 3rd-year veteran, undrafted free agent. He's a guy, he's 190 pounds, a little undersized, a touch undersized for the free safety position. But what you see is against top tier talent, like Alvin Kamara in space, like on the big touchdown, where the entire defense, basically the front, gets destroyed by a very good power call into basically a stunt, where he has to make a stop in the open field. And it's very difficult to do. And when I say that I think he can be a capable starter, it means that, does he make this play all the time? No, he's not a Pro Bowler. He's not a Pro Bowler. It's going to match Pro Bowl talent for Kamara in the open field. Kamara has a very good stiff arm, and that's what you see here with this play. So this is the nature of the beast. Secondary players in tackling and in coverage, they either have a great play or they're kind of doing their job, or they give up a big play for a touchdown. A lot of guys like to kind of look at the play from the Dallas game where against Tavon Austin, he doesn't take a great angle when on Austin's touchdown early in the game. Understood, he took an angle for 4.5 speed. Tavon Austin has 4.35 speed. That difference is something that he has to adjust to. It's definitely basically a concern. But the big issue on that play was Janoris Jenkins getting smoked by the jab step when he tries to collision a very good wide receiver. And I don't know why he's trying to collision that guy for that matter. But anyway, that's the problem with that play. And secondary guys are going to get beat. And what I'm overall seeing is a lot more good things when you work through a player that's kind of developmental that you're trying to make into a better player. And the first guy that came to my mind when I was re-explaining it this morning was Patrick Robinson in Philadelphia, who was a journeyman who came to Philadelphia and basically was a stopgap slap corner by the end of last year. He was a guy who's gotten burned more times in his career than anyone I've ever seen. But what you see is the coaches allowing him to fail at times, allowing all their players to fail, and then learn from it. And can they get better? And specifically with his failures, I think they're attributable to a couple key things for him on his traits. But overall, you're seeing him making, and I've highlighted these plays where he tackles Kamara along the sideline against the play that on the bubble screen that you brought up, where the offensive pass interference wasn't called. That was Riley making that stop. If Riley doesn't make that stop, that's a touchdown right there. There's two offensive linemen going downfield, and he knifes through both and makes the stop along the sideline. Against a few examples specifically where he's tackling from the deep safety position. They're not crazy plays. They're kind of running the plays that you can make. You see him be a very capable in coverage guy who does not blow his assignments, and that specifically was what really Andrew Adams had his issue in the preseason with, and that's why I think the coaches graded him out accordingly there. So I projected him to be a capable starter by the end of the year, and I do think this is the key. I do think the Giants are going to try to upgrade their safeties, whether you're talking about in the draft or in free agency, just like many other parts of their team. But nevertheless, I do think this guy is going to be there for the longer term because he has the overall traits of physicality, the ability, a good football intelligence, very good play speed for a player of his experience to be able to succeed as at least a rotational guy in the secondary.
Yeah, and I think I'll give my quick defense of the guy who I think has gotten kind of a narrative that got taken out of control here and is just incorrect, and that's Alec Ogletree. Some people think, based on maybe Pro Football Focus grades or whatnot, whatever you're hearing, he's not playing well. He's playing awesome for the Giants. What I do for these games is I pretty much break it down play by play on a Google Doc as I'm watching through all 22, and I take notes for every single play. And there's nobody who is more in these notes in a positive way from this game than Alec Ogletree. He made incredible stops on run plays where he was the only guy where he read screens. There was the second defensive drive of the game where the Giants stopped the Saints. Obviously, then they made the fake punt where 4 different plays he shows up in my notes as making an unbelievable individual play, and that just goes on throughout the rest of the game. So Ogletree is a guy who may not show up in any reviews of the game on any kind of site or grading service or whatever you're looking at, but he's a guy who you should keep an eye on. He's a guy who the Giants made a really good move, in my opinion, to trade for and pay. I don't care what anyone says. I think it's worth to have speed like him at the linebacker corps making a massive difference for this defense. Too many times where the Giants burn over the past 2 seasons because they have no speed at the linebacker level, both in the passing game underneath and in the sideline to sideline stretch run play game. So this is a player who they need. Is he the best at what he does? Is he the best of these speedy linebackers in the middle? No. There's guys who are better. They're going to face one this week in Luke Kuechly, but he gives them something they have not had. And to me, that's worth the money. But let's transition a little. We spent a lot of time reviewing that game. Let's go into the injury rundown real quick for this game. And so the Giants are definitely the more injured team heading into this game, unfortunately. But there is some good news. Both Eli Apple and Olivier Vernon practiced on Wednesday. A limited participation, but at the same time, in the building, there's optimism. Both will play this week. Barwin did not practice, and it's more of a maintenance thing. Personally, I'm starting to want to get him off the field. I didn't like what I saw in that Saints game, but that's another story for another day. Evan Ingram did not practice, but he did do some light jogging, which I'm definitely happy to see because it's a 2 to 4 week estimated recovery. I've always said I think they might wait until the bye week, but to me, this offense is not the same without Ingram. His ability to stretch the team, he would have been perfect against these cover 2 looks, I think. And then aside from that, Damon Harrison didn't practice. That's more maintenance. Cody Latimer, limited practice. I'm a little worried that knee injury. We don't know much about it. Giants haven't given any information away about it. So hopefully he can play this week. This offense is just not the same with Russell Shepard out there. And it sounds crazy because Latimer hasn't made too many amazing plays, but he has made plays with the opportunities he's been given. And then Sterling Shepard didn't practice, but nothing to worry about there. He had to have a cyst removed from his back. And then the Panthers, unfortunately for the Giants, they catch him when they're coming off the bye week, and they're extremely healthy compared to where they were. Trey Turner's missed every game since week 1. They're starting guard, probably their best lineman left. Well, actually, no, because Taylor Moton's playing awesome. But, Trey Turner missed every game with a concussion except week 1, and he's back this week. Curtis Samuel is going to return this week. Greg Olson's still out, but that was known. Vernon Butler is going to play this week. So they have that's it. I mean, the only people who didn't practice for them are Julius Peppers, who is just getting a day of rest yesterday because the Panthers returned to practice on Monday, and Greg Olson. So it's going to be a full show for them. But the Giants look like they're going to be getting back Eli Apple and Olivier Vernon, which will be huge if that's the case. Let's transition a bit into the Panthers preview of this game. What do you think, Nick? Is this kind of a defense the Giants are going to struggle with, or can the Giants kind of finally unlock the offense against this defense? And what do you think the Panthers will show the Giants on defense?
I think with the Carolina, a lot of single high, little cover 3 single high, or cover 3 zones from single high. They do run some 2 high, but it's mostly that. I think that immediately will be a benefit for the Giants. Just a little more of a little simpler. Simpler coverages out there. I think one thing that is interesting is they obviously have a new defensive coordinator with the previous guy going to Wilkes going to Arizona. They run very similar. They're very pretty seamless in the strategy they're going to run. They blitz a little less. Their blitzes on third down are not as exotic as they were in last year. I think that helps the Giants a little bit. I think that I've got a pretty full rundown from a personnel perspective because, again, the strategy side is stuff that I almost – it's going to sound weird. I don't think it matters who lines up against them. And I'm not trying to say that like I'm just this permeable on the offense. I'm just saying that I think they have to execute. That's the bottom line. So there is a defense here they can execute against. There's a couple things that you have to watch out for. Number one, the Carolina Panthers love to give soft cushions from their defensive backs. It kind of sucks you into thinking that you can run quick game all day against them. But if you watch the games, Bradbury as well as their new rookie corner Jackson, they're basically like baiting corners into and getting better at reading and coming downhill with their quick twitch and their ability to click and close, and basically either break passes up or intercept balls. And so it's something you have to watch out for. But I think the intermediate level here is something they can absolutely attack. I think that on the running game, it's something that, if they get to the edge, that's something that they can attack. I think that you're facing the best linebacker group in the league, arguably, when Thomas Davis is in, which he is not going to be this week. But Kuechly is obviously probably the best Mike linebacker there is. Him and Thompson are very good. I think that the Giants can move the ball against them, though, for sure. I think the biggest worry would be on the interior part of the defense with both defensive tackles Poe and Short. I do think, though, again, I think the Giants, though, when they run inside zone, you look at a player like Quan Short, he often loses gap discipline. That feeds right into one of Barkley's best runs, and that's the inside zone to early cutback. That's like his bread and butter, whether it's from a split zone look or from just regular inside zone. Like it's very similar to actually what Kamara is very good at too. And I just think that they're going to have chances here for sure. I think it's going to be a tough game, and I think it's a game that it's going on the road is going to be tough. But it's something where, and obviously there's going to be emotions too with both a lot of ex-Carolina guys going out against being on the Giants now. So it's going to be a good game there, but I think that there are holes to be had here.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this Panthers defense, you see, they're struggling to get pressure on the quarterback in some senses of the. I mean, they play Wes Horton on the vast majority of their snaps, and he has really not gotten the job done. He has 2 credited sacks, but he only has 7 total pressures. through the first 3 games. So it's not great. It's okay. He's been all right there, but he hasn't been excellent in that regard by any means. And he's playing a lot of snaps. And you look at how you attack them. You also can attack them, via the air. They have Colin Jones, who, I don't know too much about, but he's been pretty damn bad in coverage, and he's played a lot of snaps for them in coverage. He's given up 4 catches on all 4 of his targets for 61 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. So that's an area I think the Giants should look to attack Colin Jones in one-on-one matchups and when he's on the field. And that's, again, for probably he's been on the field for a little under half of the snaps, so he's more of a nickel guy for them. But Giants getting 11 personnel like they've been doing a lot without Evan Ingram and without, because that changes the way the Giants want to play this. They don't want to play Scott Simons in too many snaps, and I get it. But again, no, I do think they should mix it up with a little more Penny as well. But again, that's a guy you're going to look to attack. And then on the other side of the ball, I just want to get into kind of, where are the weaknesses of this Panthers offense in regards to how the Giants are going to want to play them on the defensive side of the ball. And to me, I think that, it's going to be interesting because the Panthers are running a little bit more zone read even than last year. And that's according to Pat Shurmur, who said it yesterday during a conference call with the Panthers reporters. Even without Shula there, they're running more zone read. But I thought the Giants showed improvement against the zone read versus the Saints. Do you think that that'll carry over into this week?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see, just to give the background, Mike Shula basically kind of fused spread and basically down the field Air Coryell system in Carolina before he was fired. I guess he was there for 3 or 4 years. So obviously now he's in New York. Norv Turner takes over in Carolina. People have no idea what Norv Turner is going to do. Some actually think that he's going to go away from the whole option side of the house. Turns out he actually turns it on its head and then throws out basically everything within the option package. It's not just zone read. They run read option, which is basically the inverted veer. They run regular veer. They run speed options. They run QB power. They run, I think they actually saw bash too in there as well. You're going to see a wider range of run concepts with Cam Newton at the helm. What's the issue with that? The issue is that you're putting your quarterback at risk. The upside for Newton is he's 250 pounds, right? So that's the game that they're going to be playing. I do like the Giants matchup there because, as Dan says, there is improvement to the zone read, and no one really wants to admit it. They just want to yell when they see a bigger play. But there is definite improvement to the zone read. And as well, what I like about the Newton matchup versus the defensive ends the Giants play, especially when Kerry Wynn is out there, is if you have Wynn, Vernon, and Kareem Martin, you have guys that are sizable but also quick. So you're not going to have – I don't think Newton is going to be able to really juke as many of those players in space and really go for the bigger runs. Where he'll get the bigger runs is off of pure scheme. I don't think you're going to have basically blown assignments there. The Giants also were as I kind of highlight on Twitter, they're answering to the zone read looks with pressure, with blitzing from the money back position, specifically Landon Collins. He did that a few times last game. So you're going to see that aspect as well. Again, just to outline it though for fans, zone read is when the running back is, if he takes the handoff, if it's a give, he's going in one direction and the quarterback is going in the other if it's a keep. So it's an opposite play. What the Panthers will do, and this is what makes it really hard to defend, is when they run the veer looks, the quarterback and the running back, it's a traditional option play, are going in the same direction. So what does that tell you? Both ends have to worry in this game, and both ends have to be ready on the play. It's not just the backside end. So from a defensive perspective, it becomes more complicated. You have to be more detailed. You have to be more assignment worthy, and you can't just blitz Collins from one side on the backside. You have to be worried about that front side as well.
Yeah, and that just goes kind of into what I was saying earlier about, I think Olivier Vernon could be a really, really big boost in this game because, again, I haven't liked what I saw from Connor Barwin so far as the run game goes. And Olivier Vernon, as much as he is a pass rusher, he's also a really, really, really good run defender at his position. I saw some of the players talking about his return yesterday, his potential return. They were talking about his ability to really move and change directions for a guy his size and his strength, and that's how how it helps him so much in the run game. So I think, again, going against a young offensive tackle, second-year player, Taylor Moden, who's turning out so far, he's been awesome so far, according to Pro Football Focus at least, could be another great Dave Gettleman find on the offensive line, which would bode well for the future as the Giants continue to draft offensive linemen. Will Hernandez already looking really, really good, in my opinion, through the first 4 weeks, second-round draft pick. And I know, Patrick Omame, people aren't as excited about, and he has struggled, but that's a free agent signing. It's not going to be easy to find guys in free agency on the offensive line. I've said that before. I'll say it again as much as I can because it's a supply and demand issue. There's very few great linemen in the NFL. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's a matchup that I'm looking into. But on that note, we're going to transition a little bit to some of the fan questions we've gotten from this week. So I'll start with a question from Tom Morehouse, and he asks, injuries, we went over that. Who's active against the Panthers? We won't know until later in the week. But he's saying, what are our thoughts on not running the football more? I think we went over that earlier.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what else can I add to that besides I let the limited runs. I liked what I saw. And I go back. I'm a little bit different from Dan that I do think that getting into the running to both running backs in space is the key.
Yeah, and I think that the Giants found more success in the run game than they had previously, just on a per play basis. I believe I saw a guy who, getting his name on Twitter, a really good follow now, who breaks down running backs, and he said the Giants had a 60% success rate on the run plays with Barkley, and basically you look at it as getting enough yards on 3rd and short, I believe, for a first down at least 4 yards. I forgot. I have to go back into the criteria for what makes a successful run, but it was their highest rate of the year. And you saw that, there were a lot more 5-yard gains. There were a lot when they did run the football, and they're 10 times with Barkley. And then there was the big 28-yarder. So I think that maybe, the reason they didn't run the football as much was what we've got into earlier as far as that goes. Hopefully that answered your question a little bit. Kyle Backoffen asks, what can the Giants do going forward to counter the soft zones they will see?
I think it's having the quarterback be able to have the recognition to transfer to play speed to be able to deliver anticipatory routes on schedule. At one point we didn't go over that's been crushed to death on Twitter is the drive concept on third and 11 with an early 3rd and 11s on the game, and it's a long 3rd and long, but Manning has cover 2, and he's got a drive concept that's designed to beat cover 2, specific high-low read, and he doesn't give the high-low read a chance. And so, that type of thing, it's kind of like no excuses. It's a little bit more of aggression and a willingness to throw with anticipation because, again, the guy's not open when he first looks at him because it's a zone defender, but that zone defender isn't in man, and his hips are pointed the wrong way. Dub Maddox 101. that's green means go. That's kill the bunny. That's send it. Whatever phrase you want to use. So I think that's how you're going to have to do that because the name soft zone is what it implies, right? There's no perfect defense out there, and so every defense has weaknesses that they just have to exploit, and they know how to do it. There's no mystery to this.
Yeah, I mean, so it's on Eli, and I agree with that. Eli Manning needs to try to make those throws in those tight spots. John Rodriguez asks, will Odell Beckham Jr. be a decoy in the red zone? I'll tackle this one first and throw it to you. Unfortunately, I think this type of process might continue because I do believe, based on what I've heard from both Eli Manning and Pat Shurmur over and over, and based on what I've seen in the red zone plays, that they're not going to get him the football when the coverage doesn't dictate it. This is just kind of an issue I have overall sometimes with Eli and Shurmur from what I've heard from them so far is that they don't want to force these issues sometimes. Sometimes you have to force the issue with Odell Beckham Jr. in the red zone. There haven't been, I saw a play on Sunday Night Football, the Steelers versus Ravens, where they literally, the Ravens defense, put 2 cornerbacks lined up right next to each other, Antonio Brown. There haven't been any plays like that for Beckham. And I've gone over this on previous podcasts, but there have been some plays where in the red zone, there's one-on-ones. There's been safeties over the top most of the time on Beckham. There's been only like 2 or 3 occasions for the one-on-ones, but they ran the football in those one-on-ones. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If he ever gets a one-on-one in the red zone, this play needs to be checked immediately to throw to him. And even when he has the safety over the top, the Giants need to give him a chance because he's proven he can do it. And the red zone offense hasn't been that successful going away from him. They had the touchdown with Sterling Shepard twice in the red zone when the defense dictated the coverage in Beckham's direction. But, on all the other occasions, they failed plays in the red zone. So I'm worried that he will continue to be a decoy in the red zone personally. Do you see any different, based on what I'm hearing? What do you think, Nick?
I think that when you use the term decoy, again, I broke down how in the drop back passing mode, how Shurmur's offenses are designed. There's an answer on both sides. So if Manning's turning away from the side that Beckham's on, it's saying that his read is turning in that direction. And yeah, they are looking for high percentage throws. Here's the deal when you talk about Antonio Brown and you talk about Roethlisberger is you have a guy who basically you have a guy who can win in isolation and a quarterback that can put the ball exactly where it needs to be put at a very high, consistent level. Basically, top 3 in the league, top 5 maybe over the last 10 years, right? That's not Manning. I actually doubt, for those that want to read like 2,500 words on quarterback footwork, I did a piece for Cover One and how I watched every fade that Manning threw in the red zone over multiple years. His throws to the left side, he's got a problem. He doesn't locate them consistently. His throws to the right side are a little better and got better under McAdoo because McAdoo made him focus on his footwork. I think that's a big reason why you don't see the fades as much. Latimer being out of the lineup hurts because he's a guy who can win in isolation. I'm not saying that Odell Beckham can't win in isolation, but that hasn't been the hallmark of his career. It's not what he banks on. He banks on being able to win multiple ways, especially with yards after the catch. I'm not saying he can't make these plays, but for whatever reason, Manning doesn't want to put that. It's a placement thing too. I think it's really tough. So is he going to be a decoy? I think that there was one design play where I forget. I think Baldy broke it down. Baldy or Schwartz broke it down where the Saints made a great play. It was a great check on a play actually that Dan actually you alluded to it multiple weeks ago with orbit motion. The Giants used jet motion this time. They got Beckham Garner across the formation. It's a quick flat route for him. It's from jet motion. It should be an easy touchdown. The Saints were looking for it. Had an awesome check to man where the other side of the coverage bumped over one and took him in man, and he was covered. And it's one of those plays where it's like, yeah, if you throw that ball, that could be a pick six. And so in the red zone, to conclude, everything gets sped up and the windows are very, very, very tight. You see great quarterbacks struggle. Kirk Cousins, it's not his go-to. I think in Manning, I think they need to help him a little bit, but I think they need to also run the ball more efficiently and do all these things better. I think it's a combination of all things.
Yep. And then we got Subwoofer who asks, what are the chances of this team going 2-2 or 3-1 in their next 4 games? And if the Giants show up, can they at least match up with Carolina? So I think we've kind of gone over that we do believe that the Giants can match up with this Carolina Panthers football team. That's not to say this Panthers football team isn't a good team, especially coming off a bye week. And then, I mean, if you want to add anything there, you can. But and then as far as the next 4 games go, with the Panthers, at home against the Eagles, at Falcons, and then at home against the Redskins, I think 2-2 is in play. I really do. I haven't been totally impressed by this Philadelphia Eagles team. I haven't done enough on them to know what's the issue right now with that team. I think they're having some offensive line issues from what I've read. I know their secondary is not that good, really, especially after the injury to Rodney McLeod. So I don't think this Eagles team has been that impressive at all. I think pretty much this Giants team to me is a very Jekyll and Hyde team that can show up any day or not show up any day. And yeah, obviously they need to fix some things on offense because it's hard to say the offense has been that Jekyll and Hyde. They had one good game against the Texans. That was it. And it wasn't even amazing. But, to me, I think all these games are winnable. The Falcons, it's in Atlanta. It's Monday night. But this Falcons defense is just unbelievably beat up by injuries. It's really unfortunate. Grady Jarrett's now out from them, their best interior defensive player. And they have so many injuries in the secondary. And the Redskins are a team the Giants have historically over the past few years matched up pretty decently well with. So I think it's possible 2-2 out of these next 3 games. 3-1, we can't say just yet based on what we've seen from the Giants. What do you think there, Nick?
I think, all this goes, I take it super 1 week at a time. But I go back to, I think these guys can win with the talent that they have. Can they win 10 games? That seems like kind of a high number. I think they can absolutely go 2-2. I think it's one of those things where if they can elevate what they had off of the Houston game, they can beat a lot of teams for sure.
Sure. And then Harlan Hugo asks, what were the qualitative differences between the last scoring drive compared to the majority of the game? How much did the defensive approach change versus the Giants actually being were the Giants actually being aggressive for the first time since the opening series?
Really, sadly, no difference. This was a great question, by the way, because you would expect that there'd be some level of change. But, I'm not trying to crush this guy, but this is a drive that was successful. The first play, Manning misses a post against cover 3. It's like the first thing in the read. So there was just same soft zone, same missed coverages. I think his accuracy was higher because they were running more of a hurry up at that kind of garbage time, mentality from the offense that they're just trying to get back in the game. But very little difference. Seeing the same. I guess for the first time in the game, I see cover 2 man being played here, but everything else is cover 3 buzz, cover 2, Tampa 2, and that type of thing. So I really no change. The key thing, even, the scissors route that Manning hit for the bigger play to Sterling Shepard, the 19-yarder that really set up the touchdown from the red zone. It's great. It was a good throw. And it was a good throw against basically cover two man. The first time that they had saw that, and Shepard beats him, and Manning puts it a good throw. But overall, not that much difference, and something where the plays were out there for sure.
Yeah, and when I hear that, Nick, I honestly think back to maybe more blame should be on the head coach. To me, the players play the game, but the best coaches are the ones who stand out. And maybe if Shermer had noticed earlier in the game that you can attack, that the best way to get this Giants offense out of the funk was by going into this hurry-up mode and by putting Eli in this situation, the outcome of the game might have been different. I really do believe that, because just based on what you said and what I saw as well, there wasn't much change from what the Saints were doing defensively, and yet there was a lot of change from what the Giants were doing from an efficiency standpoint and actually moving the offense. So that's something they'll have to look at moving forward. I do think that this is a team that should use more hurry-up moving forward. And then finally, Dimitri asked, why are the Giants getting so gadgety with Odell Beckham down in the red zone? I think you kind of already went over that, Nick.
Yeah.
So we don't need to get back into that. Dimitri kind of was answering the first question, just kind of based on what he's successful at in the past and what they think they can do to get him some chances, some touches in there that aren't double covered. So on that note, Nick, we've gone way too far, I think, on the Saints review. We both had a lot that we wanted to get to, but we'll wrap it up with some predictions for the game. Last week did not go as well as our predictions before for the Texans. Where are you going to go with here, Nick?
I think that the Giants are going to have a spirited effort, but I think that it may fall just short. I think overall they're going to be able to put up more points. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to lose a very, very tight game, 28-27, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty close there. I think the Giants are going to also lose a very close game. I think that right now they're just not a football team that's playing with enough confidence on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, they've managed to maintain confidence, and they're playing great football. But it's going to be tough, because if their offense doesn't get things going and they're not confident they can move the ball, it's going to be another game where at the end of the game, in the late third and early fourth, the Giants defense wears down. They're going to face a lot of the zone read with Cam. They're going to face a lot of just general running of the football. So I do think the Giants will lose this one 23-20, unfortunately. I do think they'll give a good effort, like Nick said, but I need to see more from this offense until I need to see more creation, more moving the football, more efficiency from the offense until I can buy back in. So on that note, we're going to throw it back. We're going to finish this off. As I said, a little more housekeeping just to close it out. If you want to follow us, you can find all my work on Giants on 24/7 Sports. The easiest way that I would say to do it is to download the CBS Sports app on your phone. On the CBS Sports app, click on that. The Giants are the team you want to follow, and then you'll start getting all my articles there. You can go into the app, click on your own version of the app, and you'll see Giants articles pop up. And you also get news alerts when any injury news or anything like that breaks. So on that note, you can find me there, or obviously on Twitter at Dan Schneier NFL, DANSCHNEIER NFL. Nick, where can we find all your work?
On Twitter, I'm at TManic21. I know not everyone out there loves the Twitter sphere. So with Reddit opening up their formatting for everything, I've actually started to put a lot of my Twitter threads on Reddit. So I'm on Reddit. My Reddit name is TManic21 as well. I'm also at Big Blue Interactive, Big Blue Wrecking Crew, Big Blue Huddle. And I'm sure I'm missing a few of the other good message boards as well, with the same type of thing, putting the full Twitter threads in a little bit more of a readable format as well. My work every week is a Giant Tidbits column at cover1.net, and trying when I can to get something on InsideThePylon.com. Later today, I will have more of a scouting breakdown with some video on the Carolina Panthers cornerback Jackson, and a little bit of background there, so guys can check that out, and with more videos coming to YouTube.
Sounds good. And on that note, we're going to sign it off. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. Please hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't already. And we'll throw it back to some of the early episodes with the Go Giants to end the show. So go Giants.